Recently, you may have heard a lecture from me, the YouTube lecture. There I have discussed about the problem of, you can say, the Arab region, the rise of Islam, and the various challenges before it. So in order to make a study of the latter medieval history, you are supposed to have the workable knowledge of Islam, because you have to deal with the important questions like the relationship between Sultan as well as Caliph. Naturally, the question would, an idea would come to your mind, who was the Caliph, what was his status. So that's why I have decided to give slight focus over the rise of Islam, and then we have to move further. My students, you will observe here, this is the region of Arabia, and in the southern part of Arabia you will find the location of Arabian Sea. In eastern part Persian Gulf, and in western part Red Sea. So the region among the three seas, Arabian Sea, Red Sea and Persian Gulf. So this region was known as Arabia. In the western part of the region, just near Red Sea, you find the location of Makkah and Medina. You will come to realize in fact this Arabian region was basically a desert region, save for certain green pockets or certain green belt at Makkah. Otherwise, that was a desert region. So agriculture was not any prominent occupation in the region, and the people living in the region belonged to different tribes, and these tribes were known as Bedouins. They were the camel riders, they were the warmongering people, and the different tribes were at loggerheads with each other. They were having the natural and the common infighting among themselves. As this region was not developed from the viewpoint of agriculture, so different tribes were involved into trade and commerce basically. So they were involved into trade. But one big barrier in the way of trade was the different tribes were at conflict with each other, at loggerhead with each other. So due to their animosity and due to the disturbances and war among themselves, the whole trade was going to be disturbed. It was a very common type of problem you have to face there. But my students, gradually the situation changed, and because earlier this is the Persian Gulf region, and you will observe here, so there was the location of a big empire, and that was Persian Empire. And in more western part of the region, just in the slightly north and east of Persian Empire, in the north of Mediterranean Sea and the east of this Persian Empire, there was a Byzantine Empire. Byzantine Empire was the name given to, earlier I have discussed with you, this was the part of Roman Empire. So both the empires were in conflict with each other, and several times the war erupted between the two empires. So due to the eruption of the war, basically all the trade traffic, almost all the trade traffic in Persian Gulf region was diverted to Red Sea. So this benefited a lot to different Arabian tribes. And naturally, the growing economic demand brought change in socio-political structure as well. It was in this way there was the rise of Islam in the region. Prophet Muhammad laid the foundation of, or you can say he had just laid the foundation of a new sect in the region, that was Islam. The literal meaning of Islam is peace and dedication, and Muslims term means those who have dedicated. So then in this way you can say there was the rise of Islam in 7th century. But even earlier I have just shown you and I have discussed with you, whenever I have taught you Buddhism, Jainism and different sorts of sects, whenever you are just calling and using the term religious movement, so religious movement was not simply a religious movement, it was some type of, or it is representing some type of social movement as well. So when there was the rise of Islam, Islam was not simply a religious movement, but some sort of social movement as well. It professed social egalitarianism at that time. And in this region, you can say the different religious sects were prevailing. And some of them were even idolaters. For example, some tribes were idolaters as well. They were just worshipping idols. And what we today know as Mecca, so later a mosque was built at Mecca was Prophet Muhammad later. But even earlier there was some square-shaped structure. And in this square-shaped structure at Mecca, the gods of different tribes were placed. So when Prophet Muhammad professed monotheism means the singleness of God, the single one God, that is Allah. So, and this Allah is shapeless, there is no shape, what you know as in Hindi, Nirakar, because this was, Allah was just like you can say an entity and he was not having any sort of attributes or shape. So obviously you can say it made the different idolater sects as irrelevant because they were already conceived their gods in the form of the anthropomorphical form. So obviously you can say once there was the rise of monotheism, so that rendered their own sects obsolete. So obviously reaction set in and there was attack even on the life of Prophet. So Prophet Muhammad just moved from Mecca to Medina with safety purpose with his followers. So those followers who accompanied Prophet Muhammad to Medina from Mecca, so they were known as Muhajirian. Even today you find a term Muhajir. In Pakistan, those Muslims are treated as Muhajirs who have migrated from India, particularly from United Province. So they were treated as Muhajirs or second-class citizens. But there was a time this term Muhajir has been used for the followers of Prophet Muhammad who accompanied him from Mecca to Medina. And this incident has taken place in 622 CE, and in the history of Islam, this event is characterized as the beginning of Hijri era. It was at Medina he laid foundation of an Islamic state. Later, my student, I will discuss with you about some specific tax. This tax was known as khams. But what was the special nature of khams, I have to discuss with you. In fact, at that time, when at Medina, Prophet Muhammad laid foundation of Islamic state, and there, this state had to run with the support of some resources or some tax you can say, and this state had to survive with some military support. So he just organized his followers into his militia or army. And in the meantime, as the fight was going on with Makkah, and there were the Meccan elites who were opposing Prophet Muhammad, but you will observe on the map, you find that actually at that time, the trade traffic was going towards Mediterranean Sea, and whole trade traffic was moving from Mecca, you can say Mecca via Medina, then you can say towards Mediterranean Sea. So the basic problem was that the Meccan could not survive without crossing the region of Medina, and this was their, you can say, choke point where Prophet Muhammad with his army could attack. And they attacked the merchant convoys. So Meccan trade was almost disrupted. So Meccans could not survive longer without the support of the trade. So they surrendered before Prophet, and then Prophet captured Mecca as well. This incident took place in 630. So there was the foundation of an Islamic state, and Mecca and Medina became the two important centers. So Mecca and Medina became two important centers, So two important centers, my student, and this was the foundation of Islamic state. But in 632, Prophet Muhammad passed away. So he himself has not, you can say, nominated any successor. So after Prophet, a controversy started about his successor, who would be his successor. So finally, some Muslims were favoring Ali because he was his nephew as well as the son-in-law. So Ali could have been the rightful successor according to some Muslims. But some other Muslims believe that no, this caliphate should not be given to Ali, rather to his father-in-law Abu Bakr. Even Umar has supported Abu Bakr. So finally you can say Abu Bakr became the new caliph. He just remained there for 2 years. Then after Abu Bakr, Umar, and then after Umar, then Usman, and after Usman, then Ali. So these four successors or caliphs were characterized as the nominated caliphs, And it was under caliphs, particularly under Umar, there was the wider expansion of, you can say, the Arab rule or Muslim rule outside of Arabia. So I will send you this map as well. So through this map, you will understand the direction of their expansion. This was the originally Arabian region, Mecca and Medina, where the Islamic State was founded. Then Islamic State spread to the different parts of Arabia, and then from Arabia, it moved towards West Asia and even Northern Africa. You can find here this Islamic world under Muhammad 622 to 632. Matlab, under Muhammad, this was the expansion of Islamic State. You can simply observe here that this is in this region. But under caliphs, there was the gradual expansion. So from this Arabia region, it moved to here. You can see that is Oman up to, and then the Persian Gulf region, and then it conquered even Iran, Syria and Egypt first. Here Syria and Egypt. So they were conquered first, and then you can say even Iran and Iraq. So this was the expansion of Islamic State under caliphs. So it became a powerful entity. Now the question arises, two factors here needs to be noted down. Basically the Arabian people were the camel riders, and they were just like working as the fighting militia. So they could not remain to be peaceful even after the rise of Islam. They were having the natural inclination towards the war. So obviously you can see the caliphs channelized their power or internal conflict into outside in the name of jihad. So there was the expansion of Muslim power or Islamic power in the name of jihad. Earlier, when Prophet Muhammad used the term jihad, so it was with an objective to make Islamic State to survive. But later Islamic State used to or coined this term jihad, or you can say came to use this term jihad in order to mobilize the Muslims. The different groups of Muslims had to be mobilized in the name of jihad. So obviously you can say then the term jihad just lost its connotation. In course of time, its meaning was going to change, what you know as jihad. So in this way, my student, then jihad was just going to lose its meaning and change its meaning. Now, in this, the conquest was going on. My point is that one important thing I have to discuss with you. In original Quran, there was no space for non-Muslims. Non-Muslims were called kafirs. And in kafirs, Prophet Muhammad is not talking about the slaying of kafirs, but rather he believes that the kafirs in course of time would be converted into Islam. So possibly he believed in the power of conversion of Islam, that the Islam could make the different races to convert, because it was, after all, according to Prophet, it was going to be a religion with humanistic face. And initially you can say, if Islam gave the slogan Muslim Brotherhood, once you are going to accept Islam, you will just become the part of the greater Muslim fraternity. So initially it assimilated certain democratic ideals as well, you can say. Although later its nature and character was going to change in course of time. So actually problem started, and later you can say after Prophet Muhammad, when the era of caliphs started, so the caliphs started to use the term and kafir and Muslim state in a very personalized manner. Okay, now it was emphasized that kafirs should not be allowed to survive. They should be given the choice of either Islam or death. So it was going to take an extremist step. So an extremist step they were supposed to take. I mean, it was Islam at that time was supposed to take, but it was simply an ideal type, an idealistic provision. It was not near to the truth, because whenever there was the expansion of Islam, so just within 8 years of the death of Prophet Muhammad, Islamic power conquered Syria and Egypt, and both the regions were, containing a substantial population of Christians and Jews, and at that time you cannot make the whole community to get converted. So obviously you can say that such a large number of Christian and Jew population could not be forcefully converted. So now the Islam had to create some space for them. Later it was decided that even non-Muslims should be, non-believers should be divided into two subgroups. Two groups. One group should be called Ahl-e-Kitab. Ahl-e-Kitab means that the religious community whose basis, or the religious sect whose basis is a text and which is not an idolater. So such religious sect should be characterized and should be placed in the category of Ahl-e-Kitab. Ahl-e-Kitab means that it is having a support of a text, it is not an idolater. You can here cite the case of Jews. The Old Testament was the scripture of Jews. Likewise, New Testament and particularly Bible was the basis of Christianity. So Islam tried to establish that actually those people who are not believers, so such people are not having the right to participate in the jihad, because under Islam every war was a religious war, and religious war was called jihad. So as they could not participate in jihad and they are not given the right to bear the weapon, so better in that case it is better for them that they had to get the Jimmy status. Jimmy means protected people. They could not bear the weapons for their own safety. So it is the Muslims who had to bear the weapon or participate in the jihad, and the Muslims would give safety to them. So they should be given the Jimmy status, and they are liable to pay jizya tax. So there emerged the concept of jizya tax. But those who were paying the jizya tax practically became the second-class citizen. So these are the limitations of jizya tax, So in this way, they brought some sort of compromise formula. Now, my students, the question arises, so far as you have discussed about the Arabian, Arabian people and Arabian civilization. But this Islam was not going to be confined to Arabia region only. It moved towards northeastern Africa, means Egypt. Then in West Asia, you observe here Syria, then Iraq, in Arabian region, Iraq, Egypt, then Arabian region, then Iraq you find, then Syria and Iran. Gradually it moved towards a part of Central Asia, even Afghanistan. It reached up to Afghanistan, Herat, here even reached up to Balochistan. So when Arabian invaders started to knock at the door of India, earlier it was believed that Indian states could not fight back Islam, and Indian states simply crumbled like the house of cards in the face of Muslim attack in India. So this was the traditional historiography just tried to establish this fact. But now in the light of new historiography, it is widely believed that in comparison to the states of Central Asia and West Asia, the Indian states could give a very longer fight to Islamic power. You will be surprised to know that it took at least 90 years for Islam to set its foot on India through Arabian conquest of Sindh. You might have heard about. So it took nearly 90 years. It took nearly 90 years to set its foot on a part of India. On a part of India, it took nearly 90 years to set its foot. So you can very well imagine that how long the Indian states could give the fight. And I will discuss with you, because this is the part of your syllabus, although it was the part of your syllabus of early medieval age, but I have very cleverly shifted this topic towards the latter medieval age, the Arabian conquest and the Turkish conquest. It is essential for you to know about Arabian conquest and Turkish conquest.